Hiya, teacher friends. After a long day of working on iTalki, I thought I'd jump on here and talk about Preply. And the reason why is because I'm sure the first thing that prospective iTalki teachers do after finding out that iTalki is full and there are no positions, or they don't like iTalki for one reason or another, um, is to go to Preply. And being the major alternative, I myself did the same thing, actually. So today I want to talk about my experience on Preply. I'd like to talk about the notable differences and my recommendations concerning both of the platforms. So first of all, why did I go over to Preply? For the convenience. I wanted to teach French. I made it to C1 level. I was at a solid C1 level, advanced level of French, and I thought that it was time for me to start teaching. I applied for Preply, and 2 days later, I was teaching. This is the first notable difference. For me to get started on iTalki, and this was even before the pandemic, um, is it took about 2 weeks. Yeah. Preply 2 days. Yeah. And basically the same thing went into it. I recorded a video. I made a description, and I touched on my profile, and bam, I was in and accepted. From there, Preply one pro with Preply, they did have more of a training process. Like when I joined iTalki, we had this one like optional Q&A session, and that was our training, right? For Preply, they do have like a bunch of videos and like this little course that they go through. You watch these videos to kind of get to know different things about how to get students, how to keep students, and I think that's really good. But I know that iTalki is going through their own process of trying to improve professional development, and they're definitely offering a lot of free webinars as well. And I'll talk about those more in the future. But I have to say that Preply does a good job in this department for sure. So for me, got on Preply and I taught about fifteen lessons. Yeah. Another difference between iTalki and Preply is that, well, you could teach at a C1 level, right? And I guess you get what you pay for. My plan was to get some teaching experience, just to dip my toes in the water. I did not want to scam anybody or rip anybody off. I'm not a completely fluent speaker, and I'm not a native speaker. But that's not what Preply is for. iTalki clearly states they need C2 level teachers. At the time, Preply didn't. And I basically marketed myself to A1 level learners. Like literally, I don't know a lick of French. And I was charging $4 an hour. That's another difference between iTalki and Preply. iTalki, I think they're trying, or they are progressing to this kind of prestige sort of class of language teachers where it's a little bit more expensive. Like there is a minimum that you need to charge, and I think right now it's either $8 or $10, at least for Canadian teachers, Canadian English teachers. And I'm sure it depends on where you are, where you're from, and what language you're teaching. But yet, it's either $8 or $10 right now. And on Preply, I think they go for as low as $1 or $2, which is just incredible. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, I was basically volunteering, and that's another difference between Preply and iTalki. That your first lesson on Preply, you don't keep a dime, you don't get a penny. Every student you teach, your trial lesson is completely free, and it's an hour. Yeah. So basically, I taught 15 lessons. I only got paid for 4. Yeah, because I only had 4 rebookings. So this is definitely a big downside. On italki, by contrast, you actually get the full. Italki doesn't even take a commission. You get the full fee from the trial lesson. Yeah. So if you charge $10, you get all $10. From there afterwards, italki takes a 15% commission. Um, with Preply, they take the full thing for the trial lesson, and then after that, they take a third of each class. And then you could move your way up. So every few classes, like 50 classes or something, it'll go down to like a 25% commission. And then I think it goes all the way down to 18%, pretty sure. Um, so yeah, this is definitely a downside for Preply and an upside for italki for sure. At least from the teacher's perspective, but it may be different from the student's perspective. Also, trial lessons on italki are 30 minutes. I think this is good for a trial lesson. I think an hour is pushing it, and for a trial lesson, to be able to get the gist of like what a teacher is like, I think 30 minutes should be enough. Yeah. Aside from that, I have to say that Preply has a better learning platform, and this really helped me out. The Preply space. However, the italki classroom has been improving recently, and some students I connect with fine. Some students there are bumps in the road, right? But that's one thing that I noticed straight away, that Preply has a rock solid platform. But at the end of the day, if you're choosing which platform to use, I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter. And for most of my students, at least the long-term students, it hasn't really mattered either. Because at the end of the day, we're going to use whichever platform we want to, whichever one has the best connection. So this might be more important, I guess, for people even teaching children, perhaps, or teaching people in particular countries. But for me, teaching adults from all over the world, yeah, italki, the italki classroom, sometimes it hasn't worked the best, but it's definitely been better recently. Yeah. So what was my experience like? Well, I did a lot of the same things that I do in English, but only in French. So I adapted a lot of the activities. And if you're looking for activities, I have a video where I talk about 20 ESL activities, so you could definitely check that out. I talk about task-based learning in my other videos, and I also talk about how to make a curriculum in some of my other videos. So definitely check those out if you're looking for some free online games that you could use, or activities that you could use with your students. But 100%. I basically just flipped everything and put it into French, and I'm sure a lot of multilingual teachers do the exact same thing. Made no difference that it was on Preply. I created a curriculum with a plan, just the same way that I do on italki. I send my students a message before the class started, just the way I do on italki. So a lot of the things I simply transferred over. And that's why even if you're teaching on Preply, like a lot of the skills, a lot of the things you need kind of transfer over. So I think we could kind of adapt a lot of the tips that you find online, a lot of the tips that you find on my YouTube channel to your Preply experience as well, or hopefully you can. So at the end of the day, which platform do I prefer and why? Well, I guess it goes without saying I'm still on italki. However, that's partially because I've already built a platform. I've built my clientele. Could I ever be a long-term teacher on Preply? Not a chance. And the main reason is because of the finance. Yeah. Free trial lessons. 100% free, and the teacher doesn't get anything, and that's 60 minutes, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be a rebooking. That's just something that I can't deal with, right? And I've done a lot of volunteering in my life, 100%, but the problem is that this is for each and every student. Yeah. So if this was only with, if each student had like 3 or 4 kind of freebies or something like that, then that'd be okay. But the fact that it's with each and every student, this is the kind of thing where it could take a while for you to really build a platform. And thankfully, iTalki is a platform where it's a lot easier, at least financially, to get that incentive because at the end of the day, we're here to work, and teachers need to survive as well. I 100% support the initiative to create a platform, and I'm really glad that iTalki has a little bit of competition as well. And I'll be talking about the other platforms, the other competition in the future. But in terms of the teachers getting their fair share of the bargain of the market, I think that's really important. I don't know how long. It'll be interesting to see how long Preply will go on for, and how successful they will be compared to iTalki, because of the different pay scheme, the 33 versus, and I know it does go down over time, but you start off at a third of every class going to Preply. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But just based on the finances alone, I'd never be able to stick with Preply. Aside from that, everything else is the same. So what do I suggest to you? I suggest that if you're a professional, unless if there's a particular scheme on Preply that I'm misrepresenting or that I don't particularly know, a way that professional teachers are able to, build a solid base without working 40 or 50 free hours in their first like 2 months, then that's great. But unless if that's the case, I think that Preply is great for beginner level teachers, 100%. And that's not like a patronizing thing, because I basically worked for free when I was getting started on iTalki, and I have absolutely no regrets. It was $6 classes, and sometimes I was giving students free classes and extra time, and I have no regrets. That's what you do when you're starting off at the bottom of the ladder. But I know that there are some teachers on Preply who charge a lot of money. Yeah, and clearly they're still on there, so there must be some secrets out there. But at the end of the day, it's definitely not something for me. So if I were you, I'd check both of them out. Try to go with one of them, and if you don't like them, switch over to the other one once the slots free up. So good luck, everybody. I hope that helps you out. I hope I answered more questions than I created. If you would like bi-weekly, tri-weekly tips, then just hit the subscribe button and keep smiling.